Here's what Mr. Burns and Mr. Martin say about Kevin McCarthy. Quote, on January 10th, so 4 days after the attack on the Capitol, Kevin McCarthy convened a small group of House Republican leaders to share his thinking. Speaking with just 3 other top Republicans on a private call, McCarthy said he might call on Trump to resign. He conferred for more than 45 minutes with Steve Scalise, Liz Cheney, and Tom Emmer, the Minnesota congressman who led the House Republicans' campaign committee. The usually upbeat Mr. McCarthy was audibly anguished. The gravity of the attack was still sinking in, and it seemed increasingly clear to him that he had to break with Trump. It was finally time to end their alliance. His plan, McCarthy said on that January 10th call, was to approach President Trump and tell him it was inevitable that Congress would impeach him, and it was time for him to go. He envisioned telling Trump of an impeachment resolution, quote, I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation you should resign. I think this will pass, meaning the impeachment resolution will pass, meaning you will be impeached. Quote, it would be my recommendation that you should resign. McCarthy said near the end of the call, quote, I've had it with this guy. What he did was unacceptable. Nobody can defend that, and nobody should defend it. Now, it is one thing to know that Kevin McCarthy once felt that way and once told his colleagues that he intended to do those things that he described. And of course, now you couldn't slide a sheet of paper between him and Trump. He decided to just jettison those apparently principled concerns and pledge his loyalty to Trump once again. I mean, that's one thing that tells you something about Mr. McCarthy. In their new book, Mr. Martin and Mr. Burns call it simply surrender by Mr. McCarthy. That's the word they use. But, you know, it's another thing entirely for him to deny that this all happened when, in fact, it happened. In a statement to the New York Times earlier today, a spokesman for Kevin McCarthy issued a flat denial that McCarthy ever said he would push Trump to resign. That spokesman said, quote, McCarthy never said he'd call Trump to say he should resign. McCarthy never said he'd call Trump to say he should resign. To further clarify, you should also know that NBC News reached out to the congressman's office following that statement, specifically asking again and drilling down on the question of whether or not Mr. McCarthy said he would push President Trump to resign. His spokesman responded saying, quote, no, he did not. Leader McCarthy also issued a statement himself today saying in part, quote, the New York Times reporting on me is totally false and wrong. The problem with these denials from Mr. McCarthy and his office is that we have now obtained audio of that January 10th phone call that Leader McCarthy held with other top Republicans, in which he, in fact, said he's going to call Trump and tell him that he must resign. The authors of this new book, Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns from the New York Times, they have shared that audio of this call with us so that we can share it with you tonight, so that you can know that when Kevin McCarthy denies that this happened, he is not telling the truth. Here it is.
Liz, you on the phone?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Kevin. I guess there's a question. When we were talking about the 25th Amendment resolution, and you asked if what happens if it gets there after he's gone. Is there any chance? Are you hearing that he might resign? Is there any reason to think that might happen?
I've had some few discussions. My gut tells me no. I'm seriously thinking of having that conversation with him tonight. I haven't talked to him in a couple days. From what I know of him, I mean, you guys all know him too. Do you think he'd ever back away? But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to call him. This is what I think. No, it'll pass the House. I think there's a chance it'll pass the Senate even when he's gone. And I think there's a lot of different ramifications for that. Now, I haven't had a discussion with the Dems that if he did resign, would it not happen? Now, this is one personal fear I have. I do not want to get into any conversations about Pence party or anything like that. I mean, the only discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, and it would be my recommendation we should resign. mean, that would be my take, but I don't think he would take it. But I don't know.
The discussion I would have with him is that I think this will pass, meaning the impeachment resolution will pass, and it would be my recommendation you should resign. I mean, that would be my take. It would be my recommendation, Mr. President, that you should resign. That's what Kevin McCarthy told other House Republicans on January 10th, 2011, that he was going to call President Trump and tell him the impeachment was going to pass and he needed to resign. Mr. McCarthy flat out and categorically denied that today. He denied that he said he would tell Trump to resign. He, in fact, said exactly that.